6. až 17. března a dalších 35 měst. Pořádá Člověk v tísni.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming to today's panel at DOK platform with the title Women in Film Industry, Examples of Change. Thank you for coming, and it's my pleasure to also welcome our panelists. So I just want to say that on behalf of the Institute of Documentary Film and One World, we are really happy that we were able to invite those ladies because we believe that the topic of gender equality and topics considering women in a film industry should really be opened. So that's our initial reason why we decided to organize this panel, to open the topic. And then I would like to invite Brigid O'Shea from DOK Leipzig. She's the head of industry in DOK Leipzig, and she will be moderating the panel, even though she could be one of the panelists as well. So I will ask Brigid to come.
Hi, everybody. Actually, we're going to be a little unorthodox today because we are joined by these wonderful women, but probably a lot of you, when we're talking about gender parity in the film industry, have heard of the wonderful work that the Swedish Film Institute has been doing over the last years. So actually, we're going to start with a keynote from Jenny Wikstrand. I don't know how good my Swedish is. I'm from the Swedish Institute, who will tell us a little bit more about the, I suppose, initiatives and work that you have been doing in the Nordic countries. Yes? Yes.
Should I change it here? Hi. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very humbled to stand here because the work we have been doing in Sweden is not my personal work. It's quite a team effort that's been going on for several years. But I will try to give you some examples for what we have been doing to achieve gender equality in our film industry over the years. Yeah. Okay. So, the Swedish Film Institute, we are working quite a lot with gender equality, but it's not just about gender equality, it's also a matter of quality. And that is the message that we want to portray, that you cannot achieve gender equality without focusing on the quality and the quality of the films. And the strategy for us has been to try and define what quality is in film, because we need to step away from unconscious bias and gut reactions and I know this guy, I know he's a good filmmaker. We need to step above that and focus on the quality of film. And we also want to make sure that we use the whole talent base of the film industry. We don't, as a governmental funded institute who are using taxpayer money, we need to make sure that we don't miss good films out there just because we are blind to their quality. So that is our basis in all our gender equality work, that quality needs to be in focus. And we have actually attempted to define our definition of quality, which has been fundamental for us. And our definition, we took it from the founder of the Swedish Film Institute, Harry Schein, in the 1960s. He defined quality as relevance, originality, and craft. We can start with craft. It's I mean, you have to have a craftsmanship, otherwise you won't be able to appreciate the image or the film, because you will be disturbed by, I don't know, microphones visible or bad editing or just unprofessional craftsmanship. So that needs to be in place. But then the project needs originality. And this, it needs to have originality either in the sense of the way that it is portrayed, or the topic itself, or the story itself. And this is not to say that you need to like invent the wheel every time you make a movie. There are some stories that are close to people's hearts and that are that we never get tired of hearing. And of course, you can make a love story or a story about war. It's the way you do it needs to have some level of originality, and it has to have relevance. And this is, I mean, it might be difficult to explain relevance, but for example, a comedy is, you can laugh, but you probably won't find it funny unless you can connect it somehow to your world and to your life. So we believe that relevance is of essence to be a part of the quality model. So these three things need to be in place when we fund a film. And we have seen that thinking about quality in this way, it makes you think about the films in another way than you would normally do. We have a commissioner system in Sweden, so there's one commissioner responsible of each project. So that person needs to motivate, why is this film relevant? What is the originality? And prove that there is craftsmanship. And we have seen, as I will show you later, that this focus on quality, of course it increases the quality, but it also increases the number of women. So our strategy has been to, number one, focus on quality. Second, we focus on gender equality. And as we go on, we will try to include more issues of diversity. But I won't talk about that so much today, but that is on our road ahead. So we made, in 2011, we made an action plan towards gender equality. And this action plan was to stop talking and start acting, as our CEO Anna Sanner said. And the action plan was supposed to target arguments that are made when you talk about women in the film industry. So it wasn't just going to be paper products, we were going to do actual actions towards those questions. And the first thing we heard, there are very few competent women, very few competent female filmmakers. So in order to address this issue, we created Nordic Women in Film. This is a database. This is a database that collects all the female filmmakers that are working in Sweden. In the beginning, we had the directors, producers, and screenwriters. And as the database continues to grow, we have added editors and cinematographers now. And so here they are. Do you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Mute off. Sorry. So I think now the database has also grown. Now it's fully Nordic, so it's also Denmark and Finland and Norway. But I think this page was all the directors, and I looked at it today. It was 1,100 people. So you can't really say that there are no filmmakers, because we have shown here they are. And this database is actually now functioning as well as a display of all the female filmmakers, but also like a network opportunity to find screenwriters and to find producers throughout independent networks. So it has a lot of visits actually. So that was one thing. She's not experienced enough, we often hear. So the action towards this was to create something called Movement, which was like a mentorship program where experienced directors could meet younger filmmakers and discuss, exchange experiences, and they were led by a professor called Anna Wahl. She was a gender professor, and they learned about gender structures, and they also experienced professional tips. So this was going on. It was quite a long program. So this was one action to target that notion. There aren't as many young women as men who dream of becoming a film director, was one other thing. And there's so much wrong with this, so I don't even know where to start. We did one action where we looked at film school attendance, and we could see that it was 50-50 by far in all the film schools. But the problem wasn't that there were women in film schools, because the recruitment to the film industry doesn't necessarily come through film schools. It comes in unorthodox ways. So apart from doing that study, we were doing a lot of work towards educations. We have done competitions. We're working with film festivals. We have regional projects going on throughout Sweden to find those aspiring people and just help them along. So this topic had a lot of different actions. And counting doesn't lead to quality. Of course, I mean, I work as an analyst, so I love counting. I would never want to stop counting, but no, it doesn't lead to quality. But we can see that when we count, we keep an eye on the matter at hand. And we had a goal that we were going to reach 50-50 by the end of 2016. And if we didn't do it, we were thinking about quotas. But because we are not afraid of quotas in Sweden, but we believe when you use quotas, it can take away the story from the issue of quality. So we try to do it without quotas, and we reached that goal. But so in our minds, counting keeps us on track. If we know what we're doing, we are constantly aware of what is going on. So then we count other stuff besides the women. We look at genres, we look at film lengths, we look at production companies. So since we are publicly funded, we need to make sure that we spend the taxpayers' money correctly. So we will continue to count because we need to know what we're doing. And those in power have no desire of seeing things change. And this, to target this thing, we did a research project with the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, where we worked with researchers to try to define power structures, invisible power structures in different fields, to try to address this issue that way. It's a little bit complicated, so I won't go into that. But it's called Eivor and Mai, and you can look it up. But that was the action to target this point. And the statistics. When we started, we had 20% female directors, and then by the end of 2016, we had 49%. We're quite a small nation. We fund maybe 13 to 15 feature films each year, so we don't want to look at it each year because it will be too few films. So we look at it in prior we had a film agreement, so the first years are the film agreement periods, and then we started doing 4-year periods. So the first number is films with commission supports. And the number within the parentheses is films without support. So you can see the effects from the Film Institute and what is going on outside of the Film Institute. So, and it was slow, but it was steady. This is what it looks like if you look at it throughout the years, because it isn't a straight line to success. It comes and it goes. Sometimes it's a good year and sometimes it's a bad year. Right now, 2017, 2018, we've seen a drop in gender equality, and we're trying to evaluate now what is going on, because, as I say, we don't use quotas, we only focus on the quality, and there have been fewer films from female directors and producers and screenwriters with that quality. So now we will see what will happen. Producers, the yellow line is still very, very high. And these slides are feature-length fiction films, and I know this is a documentary festival, so and I can also just mention that in documentaries we have over the years a very high equality rate. I think last year it was 50% directors, 50% screenwriters, and 56% producers. So the big problems lies within the full-length fiction films. And I talked about the quality of films, and since we've been doing this, we have seen that our quality of films have increased. We have our national award, Guldbaggen. We have now 56% of all of the 3 major awards going to women. That is best film, that prize goes to the producer, and we have best screenwriter and best director. So we have reached equality in that sense. And if we look at international festivals through some years, the number of female directors is constantly going up, and the films have a very high level. And gender equality it's always present at the Film Institute. I mean, I work at the communications department, and we think about gender equality when we do like a press release. Which filmmaker do we get in the picture? Is it always a man? Is it a woman? So this goes through our everyday job. So, and our main goal right now is 50-50 by 2020, which is like our slogan, and has been adapted by many other organizations and festivals since then. We will see. Personally, as an analyst, I'm a little bit unsure if we will reach the goal, but I know that there are some great films coming up by female directors, so we will see. We're also doing a green card education. After the Me Too movement, there were a lot of talk about sexual harassment in the film industry. And as an institute, we want to make sure that the people receiving our money are within the bounds of the law. So now if you receive funding from the Swedish Film Institute, you have to make sure that you know all about the sexual harassment laws and the workforce laws, and that you do things to prevent sexual harassment during the filmmaking. And power and money. This is something that we've been tackling for the last year. I brought along with me we do each year an equality report that is supposed to add new information about gender issues in the film industry. And this year we translated it into English, and it's called The Money Issue. And we looked at gender equality from the money side. And as you saw, we have come quite far as terms of gender equality in terms of how many women are making films. But if we look at what kinds of films they do, it's sadly another picture. The more money, the fewer women. At the bottom you see all the key roles: director, screenwriter, producer, and we also included leading role in this analysis to see what is the situation for female actresses. And we divided, this is for over 5 years in Swedish film, so this is like the 5 years where we have a good equality. So, and we divided the films into low budget, medium budget, and high budget films. And as you can see, in every role, as the budget goes up, the number of women goes down. And I think this 27%, it's only 4 women that have directed the high budget films over 5 years. So this is one thing we're looking very much at now, because, as you can see, this is the average admission for the films. So low budget equals, it's a narrow audience, and the big audiences go to the high budget films. So it's yeah. It's depressing to think about it, but so we're now working towards not only doing all the things we've been doing before, but also to try and increase the number of high production films that women are able to do, because we see that it's important both for the filmmakers but also for the audience to be able to have more diversity in what stories they see. That is something we're working on. But that is like a summary of what we are doing at the Swedish Film Institute in terms of gender equality now and in the future. So yeah, I will leave you there. Thank you.
So I'd like to invite my fellow panelists now up to the stage, also to join you. Thank you very much for this. Actually, will you come and sit next to me maybe for now? Don't be shy. So while you take a sip of water, actually, I would like to ask you also, ask you the first question, Jenny, which is, can you tell us a little bit more when you say you're an analyst? So what's your role? What does that mean?
Yeah, my role is to track what we're doing in Swedish film, not just in terms of gender equality, but also how we spend our funding, which trends are we seeing in the film industry, and also try to see what we do. A lot of audience service to find out what does the audience think, what do they want, what aren't they getting. Yeah, try to look at the film industry from different angles.
I mean, that's to me just an incredibly modern premise. Is this like a standard thing in the Nordic countries, that there's always somebody analyzing internally, not just the budgets and how people are spending money, but what kind of messages film funds are actually supporting and sending into the universe?
Yeah, I will. Yes, we are part of a network called EFARN, European Film Agencies Research Network, which is a pan-European organization with lots of. So I think lots of people have someone doing some kind of data compiling, and they do some compiling all the intelligence into a book. Sometimes you can reach the information, but maybe they are bad at their PR work apparently.
No, I mean, I think that the key when I think about reaching gender parity or about addressing questions of inclusion begins with self-regulation, of course, and to understand where things are happening and going. But Leena, I'm looking at you. On my notes it says I should come to you right at the end, but actually I think it's good to start. Would you start by introducing yourself in case people in the audience don't know who you are?
Yes, my name is Leena Pasanen. I'm actually originally from Finland, but have been the festival director of DOK Leipzig. So
she's my boss.
Working with Brigid since 2015. Yeah.
And so, I mean, you came from a broadcast background, and were these kind of questions also present when you were working as a commissioning editor?
I think the fact living in a Nordic country, this gender equality is something that you don't even think about it. It's so part of your DNA. Only recently I've kind of understood that it's not a paradise there either, that there's still a lot to do. But compared to many other places, there's a lot of things that you take for granted. And for me, to be honest, it was a bit of a cultural shock moving to Germany and seeing what was the reality for female filmmakers there. I didn't believe it in the first place. There was a journalist asking me what I think of it, and I was like, what? I didn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. And that was also part of the reason why we really started focusing on that there. But to be honest, I was spoiled in being a broadcaster. I was head of documentary department and head of program on one of the channels, and out of 10 executives, 10 bosses, I think 7 or 8 were women. Like, it was just everyday life also then to support female filmmakers. And if I think of, for example, the Finnish names, the big names, whether they are filmmakers or producers, at least half of them are women. So I never thought of it in that way before.
So when you came to DOK Leipzig and looked at our system, what were the first changes that you decided to implement? Because when we talk about impact, if you go to the talks that impact producers give, they always say that if you want to create change, you should always start with the things that you can touch. And so what were like the touchable things at DOK Leipzig, do you think, that have made us more inclusive?
I think that the selection committee has always been quite balanced. So that wasn't the issue. The new thing for me was like, DOK Leipzig gets approximately 3,000 films a year, 3,000 submissions. 60 to 70% of these are from male filmmakers. So on a good year, you get 40% from women. In our competitions, or in general, it wasn't so horrible. The balance was pretty okay. The problem was in the German feature-length competition. Like you said, when it comes to the big money, all of a sudden, women were not trusted, obviously. And we had more balanced years, but then we also had a year or two where there was like one female filmmaker in a main competition for feature-length films, or none, or half, or something like that. So the first idea was to start studying, why is this? The problem for me has been that we seem to be going from one panel to another, and we never know the answers. We ask the questions, but we don't know the answers. The second thing was to really cement that the selection committee is balanced. The third thing was to make the first round of selection anonymous. So when the selection committee is watching the film for the first time, they don't know who made it. Sometimes it's not waterproofed. Like sometimes it's quite obvious whether the filmmaker is a man or a woman, especially if they are the main character. But in most of the cases, it functioned, and it was funny to see last year how the selection committee was also sometimes surprised that they guessed wrong. That helped. And then, of course, the quota that I was harshly criticized in Germany, like totally beaten. This Scandinavian feminist comes and puts all sort of funny things, on our system. But actually, in the end, we didn't really need it. We got the 50-50, even when we were not aiming at 50-50. We got it kind of, it was there all of a sudden.
Yeah, again, I think that brings us back to this point about the self-regulation, of the looking at things. But actually, I'd like to turn it over to the chicken and egg pictures, because I'm not sure, Sarah, if everyone is familiar also with the work that you're doing, because when we're talking about the festival work, complaining maybe bitterly that women aren't being funded, financed, and having access to the funds, in the US the system is completely different. But maybe you could just start by telling us a little bit about the background of Chicken and Egg and yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Sarah Anderson, Director of Operations and Innovation at Chicken and Egg Pictures. It's a nonprofit organization in New York, but we support filmmakers globally. And we really work on capacity building and building and growing the pipeline and making sure that filmmakers have the peer-to-peer support, community, access to opportunities, funding. We don't have the state funding that many of European filmmakers benefit from, so it's really important to have access to the donors and the networks, and to be able to make your film in a sustainable way, to learn how to use your film to build a career as a filmmaker, as an entrepreneur. So we've been around since 2005. We've supported 300 filmmakers, granted $7 million out, putting money directly into the hands of women. We support both women and gender non-conforming individuals. So our main two approaches are providing strategic support at specific junctures in filmmakers' careers. So that's both emerging and more experienced filmmakers. And then we also really work on community building. And that's working with our big alumnus network of 300 filmmakers, as well as connecting them and doing events to connect them with broadcasters and funders.
So when we're talking about capacity, well, I guess we're going to cover three different kinds of strategies also. The training, the capacity building, and the mentoring. But could you talk about, you've mentioned capacity building, so what does that mean for you? What is capacity building?
Yeah, for sure. So, for example, one of our programs is an accelerator lab. It's takes filmmakers from all around the world, 10 different projects, and we really focus on often the first film that you make it because it's a passion project, and you make it somehow because you're just like, I want to tell this story, I'll make it, I'll put my own funding into it, but maybe you don't make it in the most sustainable way. Maybe you put too much on your credit cards, right? So we're really working on how do you work on your film in a way that you can get it out faster, more sustainably, and with a strong community around you. So it's really like the hard skills of getting edit support, like concrete skills, as well as like edit and creative mentorship, as well as career support.
Because Biljana, now I come to you, a resident European filmmaker, also on the panel. You started a new initiative, which maybe people aren't so aware of. So maybe you will also want to introduce yourself and how you came to make that initiative, and the background that led you to form the circle.
So my name is Biljana Tutorov. I'm a filmmaker from Serbia. I'm both directing and producing. I lived and worked between France and Sweden for many years, where I studied also, and I went back to ex-Yugoslavian or Balkan region some 6 years ago to be shocked to find a totally different situation than Leena was describing, or China in Scandinavia. I started a small company which produced mainly documentary films. And actually 3 years ago I was contacted by a small festival in Montenegro, so it's yet another country, that had a partnership with several NGOs really working against violence on women, very active in the region and inspiring all over the ex-Yugoslavian territory. They wanted a small workshop for girls, young filmmakers, and that was really very good experience, and we were asked to enlarge it, and then EVA, European Women Audiovisual Network, heard of it, and they encouraged us to broaden it. So Circle, which is a new training and capacity building and mentoring workshop that is still shaping itself, really fully started last year as a 3-module program, very organically. In first place, just to give a place to women producers and directors to meet and exchange, and to have an opportunity every day to work with a different mentor that we are trying to really invite very inspired and very experienced people. So maybe a little different people also than we usually meet in these co-production forums.
You have to excuse me, I have a horrible flu, which is why my face is now doing this, and my voice too. But who is Circle for?
It's for we invite women filmmakers who have a project just because it's easier to work and to share, but it's not really project based. It's more, we had an idea to every year create a group, complementary group. That's why it's both producers and directors. Some are producers, some directors, so they can freely share their experience and maybe not come with their pair producer or director, so they can complain if they have problems and really talk openly. And not for only first-time filmmakers. We had some more experienced filmmakers with the second or third film. We had few beginners, so that was also a good formula to. And we are going in depth during 3 weeks, like in June, in beginning September. And then, yes, I've forgotten to say a very important thing, that Leena and Brigid actually offered us a very nice partnership. So we came as delegation in DOK Leipzig, which was a very important and good opportunity for this group.
I think this is also important, something that both Chicken and Egg and Circle have in common. They're actually initiatives of filmmakers. So maybe you could talk about the founding members and about what their principles at Chicken and Egg were when they were laying those first eggs.
Very nice. You know, please do all the puns. We have a Chicken and Egg Award, and there's a nest, and it's very much around building community. So it was started by 3 women in 2005, and at that time, everybody said, like, why do you need an organization just for women doc filmmakers? Now, 10 years, 12 years later, with Me Too especially, and Time's Up and gaining a lot of traction, it's like, oh, this is your moment. Like, you guys are here first. But one of the impetuses, they saw this gap of the power of community and peer-to-peer mentorship. So one of the Chicken and Eggs things is we always do money and grants along with mentorship. So like, okay, it's not just a grant, it's actually like should you use that grant? How should you use it to move your film forward? Should you use it for an editor? Should you use it for your outreach campaign? So it's really helping women pull them up and creating a community. Like, okay, I've done this, I can teach you and pull you up with me. Another thing I want to mention that I think is really important is we talk a lot about gender equality, but at Chicken and Egg we really talk about gender equity. So equality is treating everybody the same way, but that assumes that everybody is on a level playing field, and if you treat everybody the same way, that it's fair. But equity is giving everybody the tools that they need to be successful. So in a landscape that has structural inequity in almost every way, that's why we support women and gender nonconforming individuals, because we're existing in a landscape where there's gender inequity.
I think that's actually a very, very important point to like really hammer in for a moment. We were talking last night together in the group, and one of the things that the IDF was telling us about inequality in the film industry in Czech Republic is that within the documentary industry, actually it's like about 50% male directors and female directors and producers. But actually those facts don't tell us really like the whole picture. It doesn't tell us who owns the companies. It doesn't tell us what kind of budgets you're getting, which is where the work that the Swedish Film Institute is doing to really like tease these kind of structural inequalities out is so important. And for me, I think, like at least in the case of DOK Leipzig, Leena, was why the quota was so important.
Yeah, the quota, I wasn't at all scared of it because I've seen how it functions, not just in film business, but wherever. It can be an excellent tool to force the change. Like sometimes it might not even be fair. Like I totally understand that there's this fear for being chosen because of your gender and not because of the quality of the film. But for me, the idea was to have it for 2 years, like just to see if we need it, just to see if it has some sort of an impact. And it wasn't 50-50. The idea was to go with the ratio of submissions. So we decided that it would be minimum 40 in each competition should be or in our selection should be by women. And like I said, it was a very controversial decision because there were so many people who started saying that, you are not thinking of the quality. But we did exactly what you did, like who defines quality? I have 8 people in the selection committee, and not once have I seen a film that they all like equally, or all hate equally. There's most of the films that actually end up into our selection are films that are somehow dividing the selection committee and somehow dividing also the audience. Like when there's something disturbing in your film, you might be quite onto something. That was one thing. What I was surprised of was the massive publicity that we got because of this decision. We had no idea that we were the first festival putting on a quota, and I had no idea that it would be such a sensitive topic in Germany today. But what it meant was that all of a sudden, the ratio submitting, receiving female films from female filmmakers was all of a sudden up to, I think it was like 46 or 48%. So also the number of submissions got up. We don't know why. And then when they did this anonymous round of selection, and then later on also when they knew who's there, the selection committee automatically went up to 50-50 in the selection without any pressure. We were never in the situation where we took a male director off and added a female. It was very organic, and I don't know, maybe we were just lucky. We will see this year. This is the second year we are doing it, whether this kind of a backbone as a quota works, or whether we were just somehow, whether it was just a lucky strike.
Jenny, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I wanted to add what you said about that you increased your submissions, because in addition to all the things that I mentioned that we were doing at the Swedish Film Institute, I have actually heard from several female filmmakers that one thing that was really important was that the female filmmakers knew that we were looking for them. They knew that we want your projects, we are interested, and we will try to evaluate your films without unconscious bias or without prejudice. And that was an important signal for the filmmakers that they felt wanted, that we were looking for their projects. So I think we also now have somewhere in the same category of submission ratio, that's a little bit lower for women, but in contrary, the projects are often more in a better state when they apply, so a higher level gets approved. But I think that signal of we are interested, we want your project is very important.
And it would be great if this kind of goes with these male producers in big production companies, that also for them the idea that there is a need for these films would be encouraging.
It's so interesting, since we instigated some prize money for female filmmakers in the market, all of a sudden actually I get many more phone calls from male producers wanting to know how to access that money. It's like, keep your hands off it. But there's plenty for everyone to go around. But then I want to ask, maybe for the Swedish Film Institute and for Leena, you can choose who wants to answer. I think that this, if we're going to talk about unconscious bias, then we can also talk about nepotism. You know, nepotism is real. So do you think filmmakers can also increase their chances of selection by through visibility?
Maybe this is not an answer, but more of a comment to this, because we were actually looking at this in our latest analysis. There was this Australian researcher called Deb Verhoeven. She's been doing a lot of interesting big data work with female filmmakers, and she did this network analysis of films. I think it was Sweden and Germany was also a part of it, and they saw that over 10 years, 45% of all male producers have never worked with a woman. And this is Sweden. So I think networks is really, really important, because it's not just about getting there, it's also that you're being let in. So so we included this in our latest report, and it has risen some debate about it, and right now we are formulating new strategy plans what we're going to do. But I think networks is one thing that is really important.
Yeah, and the thing is that especially when it comes to the international co-productions of documentary films, creative documentary films, it is a small circuit. You know, we see each other in every single market and festival and pitching forum. The decision makers, that's a very small traveling circus as well. So it is all about your reputation. Whether you are known as a filmmaker with your festival awarded films, whether your producer is the one with the hell of a track record, whether you are supported by a famous, fund or broadcaster, it's all about your reputation. And when you have that, it's much easier for you to get the meeting. It doesn't guarantee that you get money for your next film, but it's easier for you to get access to those who are making the decisions. And I think that after all these years, it's only fair that women would get the similar kind of presence or track record or visibility in this circuit. In the end of the day, it's all about how good your story is. Finally, because none of us can afford to take a film that sucks. So in that sense, like in the end, you are as good as your film is.
Would you like to add something to that, maybe about the kind of work that you guys have been doing in order to open those doors? Or are you specifically asked by, let's say, your beneficiaries or constituents to break down those doors? And maybe does Chicken and Eggs perceived version of these invisible, our chicken and eggs perceived invisible structures that we were talking about in your keynote, the same as what filmmakers think they are? Or do you see discrepancies? Do the things that female filmmakers think are holding them back from funding and distribution are the same that you think? Or are you constantly influencing and changing each other's minds? Does that make sense?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so I'm a filmmaker.
Yeah.
From Germany, and I think that I can't get my film funded because I have bad ideas that nobody cares about. But you see that I'm not going to film markets, so how would decision makers know if I have good or bad ideas if I'm not in conversation with them?
Right. Okay. I see where you're going.
Which
with
is like
it.
an extreme version, but
Yeah, I think that's a good point to explain our name, which is not necessarily self-evident. So it's a playful play on the word, like a chicken and egg problem. What comes first? Like, I don't have money to get the trailer made, so I can't show it to get money to get a trailer made, right? So like we're hoping to interrupt that cycle and come in and take risks with filmmakers early on. And I said here to the network because community, we have found over the last 14 years that community is, if not as, more important than the money that we give out. So like we open doors through who we know to be like, oh, you should talk to this funder, you should go to this broadcaster. But they also brought in each other's networks. The peer-to-peer community is huge. And we say when we ask for credits in our grant agreements, like, please, like the association with the Chicken and Egg Pictures logo helps create a really strong women-made brand. And it gives, it's like a stamp of approval, like, oh, Chicken and Egg supported the project. We should maybe invite them to the IFP market, right? Like, it's a really helpful way to expand the network and give it a stamp of approval to filmmakers who wouldn't have had access, especially women of color, especially from less represented areas where you just don't have access to maybe the same resources. So that's one of our core strategies in our mission.
And Biljana, looking at Circle, what are the things that you want people to take away after 1 year? Like, is it new
You mean the
professional skills?
participants?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, first thing we would like them. So, we said that it's for women from South and East Europe, but of course we were open also. We had one project from Norway because the lady that sent it really was in need. We had one project from Greece, so it's quite open. The idea is mainly that they clearly know that they can ask for help, that they have a network, they can ask for help, that we can put them in contact, that they can help each other, and that they have right to everything. They have right to learn everything. They have right to ask to work with best people. It's also to empower the confidence to go for the quality. So it's also a little bit out of need to do more preparation before we go out to the market, to be more sure of what we are looking for, to be more sure to develop this sensibility. And so this is the idea. It's really in that sense filmmakers' initiative. But I wanted also to say that even though in our region there are no plans and statistics whatsoever, but it's very visible, like we are under 10% or often under 5%. Even though in schools it's where there are open calls, it's 50-50, more or less, but in the industry we are far below 10%. But when we started the initiative, the film centers of Montenegro, of Serbia, others really reacted. So they offered modest, but they offered some kind of financing. So we will see how it develops.
I mean, I think that that's also just such an important point. For now, you know, for now we have to have the quotas, but also for now women have to be prepared 125,000% more than their male counterparts in order to be convincing in the market. So the more friends you have there to help you, like the better it is. I always talk about like my own personal feminism as really being about making my life easier. It's so much easier if I have a network of people who I can draw on to make me better at my job, also do my job for me when I feel like I can't for whatever reason, and mostly just not feel very alone while drinking my white wine at Sundance, as I still remember burnt and tattooed on my brain for life the feeling of what it is like to walk into like a networking event where you know there are millions and millions of euros in that room for you to unlock, but you do not know a single soul. And it is the worst feeling in the world. Would anybody like to ask some questions? Don't be shy.
I wouldn't mind following up on something you said. You were talking about confidence, and it is something we have found again and again. The confidence gap is real, and also the risk to prove yourself, like if to put yourself out there, it's a very real thing, and we hear every time. So we do these fellowship cohort models where filmmakers come together over the course of a year, so they really build a strong community. And when they go to Sundance, they like tag team and like go to parties together, right? So you can be like, hey, have you heard how great Brigid's project is? And like concrete strategies to help you enter these rooms and be like, okay, we know this is an issue, let's name it.
Yeah, and sometimes we really have to look in the mirror as well. Like, you know, I've been hiring people for the last 20-something years, and you offer a great position that is slightly, you know, you offer big boots to somebody. If it's a man, a male, they are like, hell yes, give me the job. And you offer it to female, they are like, you're sure? You're sure that I'm good enough for this position? And this is also something that we really have to realize and also really focus on the networking part.
Yeah, don't undercut your sisters. Say yes. Can I give you the microphone? Sorry, because we're recording. But
I was going to say also something about confidence.
introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Okay. Well, my name is Nelisa. I'm a cinematographer, female cinematographer. Yeah, that's another thing I want to ask. But however, I was going to say that women and men, yes, we are different. We are different. Because of the way we have been grown, you know, the way our parents, our family, society have influenced us. And this about confidence is something very important. A male, when he's offering a job, he will be like maybe 65% prepared for the job. Woman will be like 90% 90% sure about the job. Like, we know how to prepare, you know. And we will say, like, for this 10%, we will like, yeah, are you sure I can do maybe? And men are like, yes, I can do this. And this is something that we need to change. And I say that because as a cinematographer, because now everyone is talking about female director, but no one talk about female cinematographer. Like, many it's funny because many female directors that are fighting for the rights and more females in film, they are all working with male DPs, and you are like, great, thank you. Ah, yeah, but you don't have enough experience. Well, no one has given me a chance.
Sorry, see, I'm very unfortunately, I don't have any lack of self-confidence anymore. But that's called internal misogyny, girl, and everyone suffers from it. Men, women, non-gendered aligned people alike. And it's a structural problem that we have in our life, which is why we have unconscious bias, which is why systems are not self-regulatory. And it's a fight every day that you should be waging with yourself and your neighbors and your parents. And for a while, you're going to be the unlikable feminist. But then once their internal misogyny is broken, you have so much in common, so then it gets better. But you're totally right. You're totally right. Does anybody else want to say something?
I have one question. So now we reach the point when we are talking about the confidence in women and confidence in men and how it maybe varies, maybe from our upbringing, which could also, we can also start to talk about the regions we all come from, or you come, almost all of you somehow originate in Nordic countries, we learned. So I would like to ask you, what do you think? That in my opinion, it's a question of maybe how the power has been divided, like who's always been in the past in a position of power, and then now that we are supposed to be sharing it with the male people. Do you agree with this concept that maybe it's the power struggle when we are talking in equality, or even in the film industry or in general? So I just want to ask you, like all four of you, what do you think, if this could be behind this, that we have to have the panels like this?
I mean, I think no one who has power wants to give it up, obviously. But for us, maybe we don't see it as much as power, but we want to, because films help shape the way we see the world, and for us it's important that we get many different stories. We don't just want to get male stories. We want to get a wide variety of stories, because we could also see in our latest research that the gender of the people behind the camera affects who is in front of the camera. Which stories do we tell? I did an analysis of screenwriters, and I could see that 50% of female screenwriters have a female lead. And the numbers are the same for men. Men have a 50% male lead if there are male screenwriters. So you tend to write about what you know. You tend to write about yourself. But the problem is that in the data set I looked at, it was only 30% female screenwriters. So we need to broaden. We need more stories, not less. So it's not about eliminating male stories, it's about adding more stories. And I just wanted to comment on what you said about cinematographers. Maybe you feel excluded that we only measure those 3 creative roles, and I'm sorry about that. It's I think we had to pick. We picked the 3 main creative team members for all films, but we are looking at adding more, because we know that cinematographers is really important. So
there's a pan-European network of female cinematographers. Are they called the XX? What are they called?
Is it Illuminatrix?
Illuminatrix?
Yeah, you mean the German one? It's called XX.
Does it? Yeah.
They've changed the name.
And also, I was shocked. I was at a talk at the Berlinale about the state of female film composers. They got it real bad. Real bad. Like less than 3%.
I'll just add something. So we also have, we support films that have men and women co-directing teams. So men also come to our workshops. There's usually 1 or 2 at a specific retreat. And so we go through specific strategies of like, okay, when you're pitching this forum, the woman is going to speak first. We're like trying to subvert these these common, because usually the person will ask them and they'll go to the guy like, oh, what's the budget? And so we're like, no, you don't ask. The woman will answer first, the woman co-director. And so we're like, we're trying to like work on strategies. And then even in the workshops, the women speak first and the men just take a step back. It's like, step back and let others step forward. And lastly, like a mantra we try to remind ourselves is a share power for the sake of abundance. Yeah. Like it's not a scarcity. Like there's an abundant amount of stories out to be. We can only benefit from more stories. There's not a limited resource of stories. So.
And I do understand the question regarding whether it's a question of power, and where there's money, there's always like, it's a valid question. But for me, what has been the most striking is this kind of unconscious bias. I've been telling this several times. Parking a car in a Austrian supermarket, you have the sign saying this place is reserved for mothers with children. And then you wonder if it's a dad going to do shopping with the kids, is he allowed to park there as well? Like, why do you assume that it's the mother with the kids? These sort of things. In Germany, it's not such a long time ago when a wife had to ask a permission to work outside of the family from the husband, like needed a permission, these sort of things. And of course, if this is your recent history, it has an impact also on how you trust women with money. And that's where the power lies. The fact that you are still taxed as a couple, in Germany, even today, is a sign of this kind of system that it's so surprising to us, where you've been taught that you can do everything. But even today, like, how many female symphony orchestra conductors do we have, or Formula One drivers? Like, there's still a lot to do also in other businesses.
I'll add one thing to that. I think making this film is very hard, and women, at least in the States, do more housework and do more family and childcare. And it's not an easy job to do with a family. And I think this is something that would be a really interesting conversation, not just conversation, but taking action on part of film funds and festivals. We've recently, the last year, we have a Chicken and Egg Award for experienced filmmakers, recognizing them, and it's a $50,000 award, really recognizing them and building them up in the industry. And two of them brought their young babies to IDFA, and we covered. They brought their own babysitters or husbands, but we provided childcare and helping to think through how can we change the model to be more supportive, acknowledging the additional responsibilities that women often still carry.
Biljana, do you want to add something about the power?
Well, I was just thinking, I think, yes, definitely, there is this pattern, but I think how to formulate it, I think in my region it's very specific, because in socialist times of Yugoslavia, actually the situation was much better. So what happened with this war, with the church taking over, we have now reverse situation. And actually the role models are appalling. I was telling you, one of the really big impulsions to really do something is 2 years ago, there is a big show, like a TV series, very well funded, prime time, Sunday, 8 o'clock, very well done, actually. 12 female roles are all prostitutes, one way or another. And it's like that. Everybody's watching it, and it's normal. Nobody reacts.
Well, perpetuating the Balkan stereotype. But then you're such a courageous person. Then the next time you were at were you at the Serbian Film Foundation, or where were you? You were at some funder's office, and you said that it was outrageous, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
But because there is no system, we are lucky that concretely in Serbia, right at the moment, there is a healthy crew in the film office. But it's a question how long it will last, because we have a very autocratic political situation. So it's all a little bit like we should follow initiatives. We try to change, but we cannot wait for the system to change, because we have problem with the violence against women. In last months, it's really escalating. I won't tell you the stories, but it's easy to find out. So yeah, I mean, at the moment we can go in and say we really need help, and they gave us help. But it can stop tomorrow. So actually, we were exchanging yesterday. We're also thinking of alternative ways how to make the workshop sustainable, because like by the end of the year, it can change. The new minister can take away the director of Film Center that is very women friendly and engaged with our problems, you know.
Yeah, but I think that this is a really important thing to mention again. If you don't like your home system, then find some friends and say something. Say something. Don't suffer in silence through it anymore, because momentum is really on your side at the moment. This is really...
I just want to add something. For example, Film Center pick up the news about this panel, and this morning I got a report that 20 medias reported that this little initiative that is coming from our region. So obviously there is some need. I mean, just that. I mean, I have 20 links. I mean, I can send you that the different media picked this little news. So
And
it's
now
good.
you can wave to the camera, they are all watching.
You think so?
We are streaming, right?
Ah.
Thank God, this is not my finest appearance. Yes, would you just yell it out and I will repeat it into the microphone? Or
Yeah, sure. My name is Maria. I'm a Ukrainian producer and director based in Amsterdam. Due to the background, living and growing up and studying in a film school in Ukraine and then moving to the Netherlands Film Academy, I kind of experienced different worlds, I would say. But I think that you pointed out very important thing that's rarely brought up in Eastern Europe is capacity building. Because there is, statistically, I was having 7 girls and 4 boys in the director's class in Ukraine. And then, I mean, now there are even more girls. So yearly we have this joke, again, directors. Like, let's see how many of them will become directors by the end of the studies. Because they have like 9 girls, 10 girls, and 2 guys. So yeah, we usually go for this strange feeling that, yeah, there is small belief that they will end up being directors. They will open the first door. So I think that just as it's more like a comment, or maybe if you could express if you agree, that this first step, first time filmmaking, first time, like first open door, that would be really helpful, because especially when you're at IDFA, guest meet guests, you know no one, and you're like, oh yeah,
girl,
maybe I should quit.
You've made it to IDFA, that's half the battle.
I live in Amsterdam.
Yeah, but still, like, you got the accreditation, so you're at the door. It's better. Anyway, but no battle is better than another. But maybe that's something for you, Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I was nodding my head because I agree with you 100%. Somebody told me once that there's enormous opportunity to do a lot of work for not any money and not get any recognition in the documentary film field, especially for women. The stat is that like 22% of filmmakers make their primary living from documentary filmmaking. So this is something we think about a lot. So like capacity building, not only like how do you make your film in a way that has the quality that the Swedish Film Institute is looking for, to learn the craft and the art of it, but also to make sure that you're getting it seen, that you know how to do the business side of it, and so that you can then like think, okay, when I'm launching my film at this festival, I can talk about my next film, and I'm building a career and a portfolio of films. And so I think that's where it's capacity building and community building that is so crucial for the pipeline growth.
Yeah, I organized this film market for 10 years. And I had like a total aha breakthrough moment, I think 2 years ago, when I kind of stopped looking at it as a market, like where you go to buy and sell things. But actually now I understand it as a solidarity network, and it makes the work much healthier for me, because I don't feel like I'm chasing money around that doesn't really exist, if I'm honest, in all forms, and especially for filmmaking forms that are non-commercial these are not commercial films that we're working on. And so, and then since then, what I also worry a lot about is this concept of the popularity contest. You know, how do you make sure that people, when you are at Guest Meets Guests, either you're not just hanging around in your own circle of friends because it's easy at the beginning. It's always easy to be around people you know, but also how to make sure that people who do have something to offer feel self-confident enough to do it. And I don't think that a drink at Guest Meets Guest is the best place to do it. For me, it's always good to find out if somebody has pets or if they have kids or if they're wearing like a nice tie or something. Like the personal relationship is the first step to the networking, not the ask for money. And the best thing you can do is join some kind of union of people who are like-minded. So that doesn't even mean paying a membership to be in something like IVA. That might just be hanging around with someone like Doc Ukraine who know people because they're programmers who will introduce you. And on the whole, the good thing about documentary is most of us are pretty generous with our time and knowledge. Especially for Leena and I, especially if there's white wine.
Oh, yes.
Especially
every time.
Yeah. Prosecco. Yeah. Or Prosecco. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hello, thank you for that. It's been beautiful to listen to you guys. My name is Allegra, and I'm a director, or, well, an aspiring director. I've made a few things, but I still kind of feel like I'm making my way through there. I had a couple of questions. In the presentation, you spoke about the Nordic women of film, or this kind of network that you've created online. I'm kind of interested in knowing how you chose those people and what kind of qualities they had. That was my first question, and I have another question, which is, in the film world, in any sort of kind of culture world, it is about networks. It is about knowing what keywords to use in your applications, and when you're new to it, or if you get to a new country and you're new to it, how is it that you find your way through, other than through social events like this?
Yeah, I'll try to answer, but I'm not 100% sure. But, the Nordic Women in Film Network is, we have an editor called, she's named Jannike Ålund. She's a female Swedish filmmaker. She is like, in the beginning, I think she like handpicked most of them by hand, but since the network had grown, I think people are like sending in their information, and we try to get pictures of everyone. You could see in the presentation that some of them have like this just standard pictures, but we're paying an editor to work on this site and trying to update it we started with director, screenwriter, and producer, and now we have included editor and the cinematographer, and we're still so I'm not 100% sure how she does it, but I think it's like a constant database that we're still uploading. And the second question was about keywords, or like
yeah, just to add to that, still, you were what are the kind of qualities that they're looking for, or is it just people who are already established in the Nordic film scene, or how is it that people are found? Is it just?
I think we want it to be a professional database. So if you are just up and coming, it might be difficult to get in. But I think we have some people who have been doing like short films and stuff. So. Yeah, but you should be a Nordic player.
I am.
So if you're trying to figure out how to sort of start building up your international reputation or your reputation as a professional, I would say that there's a lot of really good training initiatives, like weekend workshops next to, several festivals have it, or 1 year training initiatives. Whether you have a project or you want to participate as an observer, it's always a really, really great way to start, because that's where you meet others that are in a similar situation that you are. You meet producers and filmmakers from other countries, and most of all, it's a much more relaxing place to meet decision makers. Like many of these training initiatives, they actually finish with some sort of a pitching forum or one-to-one meetings or whatever. And that's the best way for you to start sort of introducing yourself as an up-and-coming professional. And like I said, it's a small group of people traveling from one place to another. You go to another place and they already remember your face. It takes a couple of years before they start remembering your name, but the face slowly becomes familiar.
Thank you. I'm personally so bad at networking. That's why I'll stick to the analysis. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm glad I'm not a filmmaker.
Maybe actually this is a good place to stop because it's time for Guess Meet Guest, no?
Wine.
It's coming up, yes. Thank you. Or do you want to ask one more question? Is there one more?
No, I want to talk about pets and kids.
Wait until I got my white wine, please. No, but I love pets and kids. Yeah. I can come. Hold on, I'm closer.
I have strong voice. So that I agree with Leena, as I think it's everything about your name and publicity. It's absolutely true. I know the beginning is difficult. It's not so much about genders. It's about partly about money. And I am from Czech Republic, and I feel it here that it is so complicated to receive fund for this project or for short one or maybe the evening program and so on. So it is we must be patient. We must be patient and work very constantly and hardly every day. So this is my experience from the center of Europe. Prague. Sorry.
All right. So thank you very much, dear women, for being with us and sharing your experiences and concrete data. Not just experiences, concrete data. So a round of applause, please, for our panelists. And thank you. Yeah, no, come up. Thank you to the IDF and One World for the invitation.
Yeah, so the one last thing I just want to say that I think that we could all be glad that we started this topic and that we are opening up the topic in our region. We think that the platform should also be doing things like that. And I just wanted to tell you that the Circle is, they have an open call for also Eastern European, Central European filmmakers until the 15th of... Yeah, there are flyers there if you want to look, if you are interested in maybe applying. And Chicken and Egg, they are also open to international filmmakers.
Yeah, I'll just say really quickly, I didn't mean thank you for the reminder. We have an open call for our Accelerator Lab, and that's for filmmakers making their first or second feature-length documentary. And that will open in May, and that will be for the 2020 year. So please follow us on social media, newsletter to find out about that and send all your talented women filmmakers to us. And then we're also going to be launching a completion fund called Project Hatched, because we do love our puns. And there'll be more information about that soon. And that's also going to be international. So thank you.
Yes, closing funds. Ugh, post-production funds. Why aren't there more?
We're trying.
Super. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Dokumentárních filmů o lidských právech. Praha 6. až 17. března a dalších 35 měst. Pořádá Člověk v tísni.